Palestinians are accusing United States of partnering with Israel to prolong the war in the Strip. They have held the deaths of civilians not just against Israel and its forces, but also the White House and its decisions. Intense negotiations are underway in Qatar over a temporary truce in fighting. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has refused a ceasefire in the ongoing war. Qatar is now looking to secure a deal for the release of the hostages and for humanitarian aid to enter the besieged Strip. People have called out, and I'm quoting here, the hypocrisy of Washington over its repeated vetoes to an immediate ceasefire. During the course of the war, which is now in its 5th month, the United States has vetoed 3 draft resolutions at the United Nations. 2 of these demanded an immediate and total ceasefire in the war. A UN-backed report has warned of famine in Gaza once again. The report says over half the population in Gaza is facing catastrophic hunger. The hospital staff in Gaza has said that struggles are mounting because the meals provided to the patients were not nutritionally sufficient. The condition of the staff is no better. Some staff who are experiencing weight loss and lacked the energy to work for even 2 hours. Aid agencies, which have reported widespread shortages of food, medicines and clean water in Gaza, have said that the aid being delivered through sea is inadequate for the scale of people's needs. They have urged Israel to allow far more aid into the Strip. Iran has described US move of airdropping aid in Gaza as symbolic and ridiculous. Iran's foreign ministry spokesperson said that US aims to change its aggressive image with such displays. The statement came following his displeasure over US support of Israel and a delay in truce. He further added that these actions, in the opinion of the battered Palestinians, is a comical and bitter spectacle. The US has been supplying weapons to Israel since the start of the war in Gaza. While Washington battled for Israel's right to defend its territories against the Hamas attack, global anger against its veto is mounting with no ceasefire in sight. The French ambassador to United Nations has said that Security Council cannot continue to procrastinate an end to the war in Gaza. Ambassador called the humanitarian situation in Gaza absolutely catastrophic. Now, he called on the Council for only being able to adopt 2 humanitarian aid deals, which he said have not even been implemented. This comes as the French President Emmanuel Macron continues to hold ground over a ceasefire in Gaza. Britain's Foreign Secretary has said that it is a truce between Israel and Hamas and it is vital. He said that a ceasefire is the only way to enable the release of hostages in Gaza. However, he added that there are a plethora of conditions to be met for a lasting ceasefire. Now, these include the complete disarmament of the militant group Hamas and the dismantling of militant infrastructure. The secretary said that this during the trip to Thailand on Wednesday. He added that the attacks on Israeli civilians and the hostages being held in Gaza is inhumane, and the only way for Palestinian people to have a secure future is if Hamas is wiped off the picture. Dublin held the biggest parade ever to celebrate Irish culture on St. Patrick's Day. Over 5,000 people took part in the colourful troupe that paraded through the centre of the Irish capital. The parade was staged for over 500,000 people and was made up of military bands, multicoloured giant fish and disco queens. During the parade speech, Irish President paid tribute to Irish people engaged in the in peacekeeping and humanitarian work around the world. During this speech, he also said that Gaza was in his thoughts. Speaking of the United Nations Security Council, he said that it was marred by abuse of veto. He added that the Council has been unable to reach any effective resolution over Gaza or Ukraine. Spain's upper house, the Senate, has admitted the new amnesty bill for processing. The Senate, where the Conservative People's Party has an absolute majority, has until May 16th to vote on the bill. The Conservative People's Party has said that it will try to block it. However, even if the upper house was to veto it, it can be overridden by the lower house. The approval is positive news for Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez. It may clear major hurdles caused over political setbacks, including a COVID face mask scandal. In January, the Catalan party vetoed the bill, which is demanded in return of support for Sanchez. The rejection came over concerns of the bill not covering certain separatist leaders, including self-exiled leader Carles Puigdemont. Mexico has called the new Texas law on migrants both anti-migrant and xenophobic. The new law allows state law enforcement bodies to arrest people suspected of illegally crossing the US-Mexico border. The Republican-backed law was passed by the US Supreme Court on Tuesday. The court also rejected President Joe Biden's government's bid to block it. The Republican Texas Governor Greg Abbott has called the court's action a quote-unquote positive development. Texas has tried to deter people who cross over illegally under Operation Lone Star. Texas used measures including the deployment of National Guard troops to the border. It also blocked migrants with wires and by installing floating barriers across the Rio Grande. Doctors at Kenya's public hospitals have entered the 7th day of a nationwide strike. They're accusing the government of failing to implement a raft of promises from a collective bargaining agreement signed in the year 2017. Leaders of the union say that at least 4,000 doctors are taking part in the strike. The impact of the strike is being felt across the country, with many patients being left unattended, and they are being turned away from hospitals across the East African nation. Finland has once again topped the World Happiness Index report, which was released on Wednesday. This is the country's 7th consecutive win. The report measures social support, income, health, freedom, generosity and absence of corruption to determine national happiness. Nordic countries have kept their places in the top 10, with Denmark, Iceland and Sweden following closely. The Taliban-ruled Afghanistan continued to stay at the bottom of the 143 countries surveyed. The United States has backed the 23rd position, slipping down from its under 20 mark for the first time. Finland's strong welfare society, trust in state authorities, low level of corruption and free healthcare have been key factors contributing to its win. Thailand's Constitutional Court is expected to consider deliberation of a case to dissolve the Move Forward party. This comes after the party violated the country's constitution. It sought to change a law against insulting the monarchy. The party's liberal agenda and appeal among young urban voters is seen as threat to the status quo in Thailand. It also collides with interests of powerful conservatives and royalists military that blocked Move Forward's attempt to form a government last year. However, the party's former leader has said that the party has a succession plan to broaden its political ground even if it is dissolved. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un guided a ground test for a new missile on Wednesday. The country is testing a solid fuel engine for a new type of intermediate range hypersonic missile. The move comes as part of Pyongyang's efforts to develop its national defense capability. The test was conducted at the North's main Sohae satellite launch station near the west coast. Post the tests, the North Korean leader has said that the strategic value of this system is the same as that of an intercontinental ballistic missile. The Australian Foreign Minister has said that she discussed a range of shared interests with her Chinese counterpart. She added that the Australian government is looking to wisely solve differences with China. Importantly, the two leaders discussed Australia's concerns over human rights, including in Xinjiang, Tibet and Hong Kong during the meeting. Australia also welcomed to tap progress and trade impediments on barley and wine. Wong also announced that Australia is preparing for a visit by China's Premier Li Qiang later this year. Taiwan and China's strains continue to mount, and this time Taiwanese officials have warned against Chinese activities in the South China Sea. The foreign minister has said that Beijing has built enormous military bases in the strategic waters. Now, these bases are particularly built surrounding Taiwan's main holdings in the sea. While both countries have disagreed over South China Sea settlements over the years, Taipei has said that it is not looking to further escalate the matter. China launched a new satellite into the space for its upcoming moon mission on Wednesday. The satellite will act as a communications bridge between ground operations on Earth and an upcoming mission on the far side of the moon. The project will mark a new phase in the country's long-term lunar exploration program. The relay satellite has a mass of 1,200 kilograms and is equipped with a 4.2-meter parabolic antenna. Its elliptical orbit will allow it to maintain communication on both Earth and lunar far side, which never faces the Earth. The satellite has a mission lifetime of over 8 years. China conducted its first lunar sample return mission in the year 2020. The hostilities between Pakistan and Afghanistan has led to the closure of multiple border crossings between the two countries. Both the sides have agreed on a pause in cross-firing at the Kuram border in Pakistan's Pakhtunkhwa region. The truce was brought to effect after dialogue between the village locals at the borders and the diplomats of two sides. On the other hand, trade activities also remain suspended at the border crossing for the second day. The silence was broken after another clash near the Angur Adda border in Pakistan's Waziristan region. While the firing caused panic in the area, no damages were reported. Each year during the month of March, thousands of people visit the University of Washington to see the cherry blossoms trees in full bloom. With the winter months now over and warmer temperatures creeping across the Pacific Northwest, the buds bloomed a week earlier than initially anticipated by the university staff. The 29 Yoshino cherry trees in the university quad are famous for their cloud-like blooms. The trees were initially planted in the nearby Washington Park until 1962. Now, they were brought to the university over developmental plans. And as per the university staff, the blooming trees can last about 2 weeks if the weather stays cool and there's little wind or rain. China kept its benchmark lending rates unchanged in its monthly fixing, aligning with market forecasts This decision follows the central bank's recent maintenance of a key policy rate, reflecting tentative signs of economic improvement. With a growth target of around 5% for 2024, China faces the challenge of revitalizing its struggling property sector. Notably, the 1-year and 5-year loan prime rates remain steady. Despite encouraging factory output and retail sales, property investment declined sharply in the first 2 months of 2024. Credit growth has also slowed, with outstanding yuan loans seeing the lowest increase on record. Asian markets are poised for an eventful day as investors await key central bank decisions. Following the Bank of Japan's historic rate hike, focus shifts to China and Indonesia. The yen's decline to a 4-month low against the dollar has propelled Japanese stocks, with the Nikkei 225 nearing record highs. In China, concerns over the property crisis persist despite a rise in the Economic Surprises Index. Analysts anticipate the People's Bank of China to hold its loan prime rates steady. Meanwhile, Bank Indonesia Meanwhile, Bank Indonesia is expected to maintain rates but may cut in the second quarter amid signs of economic slowdown.